Who is Nurse Ratched? The main villain in Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Nurse Ratched is known infamously in literature classes as a stone-cold evil villain. She was subsequently played by Louise Fletcher in the film adaptation of the novel. It's also known for breaking social barriers and bringing to light America's psychiatric care system in a time when they were under much scrutiny. But what are Nurse Ratched's personal motivations? Well, Netflix has just brought us the series Ratched, said to be the prequel to the character we come to see in the film. We want to discuss in a little more detail just what we do know about this character, stemming from her persona in the film as well as in the show. As usual, if you're not all caught up on Ratched, or the film for that matter, here's your spoiler alert. Mildred Ratched is one of those people who is terrifying because her brain works in such a manipulative way to the point where you never know quite what she's up to. We're already struck by Ratched's demeanor in her introduction on the show. Classy and elegant, but rude and almost immediately judgmental. She forges a letter from Dr. Hanover inviting her to an interview so that she can get a job at the hospital. Okay, seems relatively harmless, right? Well, she finds one of the nurses having sex on the job, so she uses that to blackmail her into leaving her post to open up a nurse's position for Mildred. I guess still not really hurting anyone physically, right? People will go to great lengths to find work, and it was the 1940s. Well, here's something far, far more harmful. Nurse Ratched, in order to gain leverage over Dr. Hanover and by proxy Nurse Bucket, convinces one of the patients to commit suicide in Dr. Hanover's office, telling him that's his only escape and truly believes she's showing him mercy by getting in his head in this way. No one ever finds out it was Mildred who carried out the heinous task, and we realize that this woman is pretty much capable of doing anything, and will probably use the excuse of mercy in order to justify her actions. We realize eventually that this is all in the name of love, as her brother Edmund is a patient at the facility. It still gives us the creeps how she can get inside people's heads and make them do some horrible things just to further her own agenda for herself and her brother. Well, how is she similar or different than the version of the character we come to see in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? In the film, we don't get to see much of her motivation for running the hospital with such an iron fist, only that she believes it's her purpose to do so. The story of the film is that Nurse Ratched is the head of the hospital who deals with the patient Randall McMurphy, who, like Edmund in some ways, decides to play the role of being insane so that he doesn't have to stand trial. Because of this, he can spend his days in the mental facility. Well, Nurse Ratched sees through most of his ways and doesn't like to have her authority questioned or undermined. In the film, we don't really get to see the personal backstory of the character the way that we do in the show. There are definitely some moments we see the humanity in Nurse Ratched in the show, like when we learn about her childhood trauma, or when she tries to stop the torture of a few of the patients, and when she expresses her vulnerability to Edmund and her love for Gwendolyn. These are all moments we feel kinda bad for her, and it plays tricks on the viewer's mind that somehow all her actions are justified. We love how the show has made us think so deeply about the human psyche and all of its complex layers. Although we see Nurse Ratched in multiple stylish, put-together outfits in the show, we do see her in that long blue uniform while she's working at the hospital. But that outfit doesn't make quite as much of an impact as that unforgettable, clean-cut, crisp white uniform from the film that has become the image that comes to mind when viewers think of Nurse Ratched. Also in the film regarding her hair, well, we don't think it's any coincidence that the style of her hair makes it look like she has devil horns on her head. The true epitome of evil. However, just like in the show, she has a calm, hard-to-read look in her eyes and a soft-spoken voice. There's no shouting, screaming, or overt physical violence we see coming from the nurse, so we're sucked into this whole different kind of evil. And the interesting part about her character is that she's not just the pinnacle of evil or a vile monster with no depth. In both the film and the show, we find that there are layers to Nurse Ratched, and as we said before, she truly believes she's helping people, not that she's evil. Of course, we know that convincing someone to kill themselves for her own personal gain or manipulating the last known survivor of Edmund's massacre again for her own personal gain is not actually an act of mercy, but an act of selfishness. But in Nurse Ratched's mind as she walks through the hall commanding authority, both in the film and in the TV show, it's clear she really believes she's doing the right thing. Well, there are so many stances on her character. Some viewers say it's nice to see a woman in charge and that the men are scared of her because she's in a position of authority, which was rare at the time. Some say they don't care if she's a woman or a man, just that she's awful and they can't stand her manipulative ways. Which do you think it is? Is it interesting to see a powerful female villain in such abnormal surroundings? Or do you think she's just a vile and evil person who shouldn't be allowed in a position of authority, let alone in the free world? Let us know in the comments below. Both the film and the show rely heavily upon Nurse Ratched's conniving manipulation of the patients, staff, and external characters in order to portray just exactly how terrifying she really is. Another similarity, Nurse Ratched in both the film and the show both know how to use a person's weak spot in order to get them to break. We see in the film how she's able to get Billy, who has a stutter, to break down completely, just by asking how his mother is going to take the news of his behavior. She knows that it will send him spiraling, and she's completely unfazed by it. Poor Billy ends up killing himself from the fear and anxiety of the situation, which leads to McMurphy lunging at Nurse Ratched. This kind of punishment sheds a whole new light on cruelty, and that scene definitely gave us goosebumps. It's ironic that the patient at the psychiatric hospital is the one that can see through the mental and psychological facade of the head of the facility. But that's why this story is so controversial. It urges the consumer to challenge authoritative figures and question what seems like reality. Although Netflix has brought us the exact same character in the show Ratched, the nurse actually made such an impact on society and pop culture that various characters have been molded after her. The theme of the seemingly innocent but secretly evil nurse is seen in many shows and films since One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, all inspired by Nurse Ratched. So it's very clear that as a villainous character, she has become an icon. And we can't wait to see how the next seasons of Ratched on Netflix provide us with more insight on her complicated character. So friends, what are your thoughts about Nurse Ratched? And what are some other similarities or differences you noticed between the portrayals of the character both in the film and in the show? Leave us a comment below. As usual, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell as we bring you more juicy info, gossip, and speculation about the shows and stars you know and love. Until next time!